I'm David. How are you? Was reading the results of a Gallup poll conducted in January 2024 regarding satisfaction levels of Americans, and the poll states 47% of Americans reported being very satisfied with their personal lives, marking one of the lowest points in over 2 decades. Additionally, 31% were somewhat satisfied, while 11% noted somewhat dissatisfied status and 9% very dissatisfied. And Lee's findings indicate that approximately 20% of Americans express some level of dissatisfaction with their lives. Further data from the National Health Interview Survey in 2021 revealed that 4.8% of adults were dissatisfied with life. Factors such as low income, unmarried status, poor general health, lack of social support, and food insecurity were associated with higher levels of dissatisfaction. Lee's findings suggest that while a majority of Americans were satisfied with their lives, I'm assuming about 80%, a notable portion experiences dissatisfaction influenced by various socioeconomic and health-related factors, which would be like somatic issues or health conditions or whatever. So, from reading this, I guess I must assume I am in the lower 20% of Americans which suffer from dissatisfaction with life, which I don't even know if I would agree or disagree with that. There are things in life of which I am dissatisfied, and then there are things in life which I am satisfied of. So, for example, I guess you could say, as far as income, well, the things they list, as far as income levels, I'm okay. I feel okay. I make more than average income and more than median income. And there was this thing I read some years ago, I think it was a few years ago now, of like your quality of life in the United States doesn't really improve drastically beyond like $60,000 or something. I think this must have been a study or a result that came out prior to COVID. I don't know particularly how you would make that argument now post-COVID. And like, for example, if you look at the housing market in the United States presently in 2025, the median sale price of a home in the United States is approximately $420,000. And if, like, you were to run that number, you know, through sort of the process at which you would determine someone's income to be able to afford such a home cost, how much debt to income, what your DTI ratio should be, what your income level should be to actually afford that $420,000, given present interest rates in the U.S. And current interest rate here at the beginning of February or whatever, at least when I looked, seems to be fluctuating, kind of vacillating between like 6.9, 7, 7.1, somewhere in there. It's kind of trended up a little bit since the election and the transfer of power to the new president. So, to afford a house of about $420,000, you would need somewhere around like $120,000 to afford that and not be completely leveraged to the hilt on debt to income ratio, something like that. I mean, don't quote me exactly, but let me see if I can do a quick calculation on that. Well, and that would be the thing too. How much down payment would you put on any of this stuff? Let's say we went with like a conventional loan, 20% down. So you're buying a $420,000 house. So you'd have to put down to get to 20% like $84,000 saved up, which I think for most people that's probably not the easiest of things to do. And then your DTI, try to keep your DTI around 35, between like 35 and 40. I mean, you could talk to lenders, and there are some aggressive lenders that would let you go up to like 50% or whatever. But personally, I think you're maybe setting yourself up for some issues in the future. But let's say 84,000 down, which would leave you with like just shy of 340,000 on a loan to take out on 7% interest. So you'd have like a mortgage payment of over 2,500, like 2,600. That would be your mortgage payment to keep your DTI reasonable, if you could call that reasonable. So yeah, you'd have to make at least, in my opinion, to kind of keep all those numbers, for lack of a better term, good, not completely leveraged to the hilt. You'd have to make like at least minimum six figures. And what is the percentage of people in the United States that actually make six figures? I'm curious about that. So, approximately 15% of Americans aged 15 and over have an income of $100,000 or more. So that's the crazy part, you know. In the United States today, right now, in February of 2025, the median home value is $420,000. You'd have to throw down over $80,000 and have a six-figure income. And only singularly by themselves, only 15% of people in America actually have that, could do that. So I think what that really reflects, those are just hard fucking numbers, hard data. So what that reflects, in my opinion, is, which I think should be obvious to most people now, is the economy, the housing market, the way everything is set up. If you want to buy a car, if you want to have a house, if you want to have a life and children and go on vacation and do any of that shit, you really, well, 85% of people really need two incomes to afford the median, to afford a median lifestyle. And that kind of brings me back to, with the way everything has sort of accelerated and exacerbated, I think, since, there was a lag effect when the pandemic and everything first kicked off, but I think that probably triggered a lot of it. But then after, say, 2022, when the interest rates shot way up, the cost of everything has gone up as well. The cost of living in general is, I think, fairly high, at least over the course of my life, and I'm 45 years old now. This feels like the worst time as far as the economy and markets and housing market and buying a car or being able to afford household goods, general kind of services, food, anything, utilities. This is the most expensive relative I've ever seen it in my lifetime. And I remember, in the news and everything, there's big talk of how terrible the global financial crisis and banking and housing market failure of the mid to late 2000s was. And that was about the time I moved from California to the Midwest. So where I would say, at least on the West Coast in California, sort of the housing market I remember was quite expensive. And I moved, my solution at the time was just move somewhere cheaper. And I don't know. I bought myself 10, 15, 20 years of escaping what was happening on the West Coast. But it appears to have all caught up or spread everywhere. Because now, even in middle America, you can look at houses that are quite unaffordable, certainly unaffordable for a single person unless you are making six figures, and then even then, just bare minimum entry level into six figures is kind of borderline for affording a median priced house. So to kind of put this into perspective, hopefully, in 2025, the median home price, $420,000. To qualify for that, you'd have to make six figures. That would put you into the top 15% of income in the United States. And if these numbers are correct, in 1995, the median home price was about $115,000. And the average income in 1995, at least 40% of people, or 40% of people made $25,000 or more annually. And with that, you could qualify for a house of about $115,000. So it certainly seems to me like 30 years later, the cost of living is much, much higher. Now, of course, keep in mind that is entirely a breakdown or analysis of if you want to buy the median house at the median price and live a median style lifestyle, I guess. There's certainly still plenty of opportunity within reason to sort of circumvent or get around or employ differing strategies to get yourself a house or make ends meet. For example, here in the area where I'm at, I personally work in a larger metropolitan area where the salary for my particular field and area of expertise and particular job title is on the higher end, the higher-ish end, at least for the Midwest. And the way I kind of smooth out the cost of living is I live outside of the metro area, but then commute, either telecommute or it's a combination, right? Hybrid work. I'm involved in hybrid work. So I telecommute, to use a stupid term, and then also physically commute into the office some days. And I get paid a higher salary, working in that metro area for a bigger company, and when I live in a more rural area where the prices are more affordable. And that's, I guess, how you could say I work around or circumvent some of those issues. If I actually lived in the metro area, then I would personally be looking at those median priced homes of like $420,000, which you can see them all over the place. If you pull up a property map, realtor.com or Zillow or whatever, and look at that large metro area, it's all $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 homes, and you know, you're talking about a lot of income to afford a mortgage on that, or just have a big stockpile of cash to buy something like that. Which the funny thing is, not really funny, but the thing is, if you rewind the clock 4 or 5 years pre-pandemic, all of those houses are like half the price. But you still can also go into smaller metropolitan areas and find, pockets of real estate markets that are like median price of maybe like 200, 250, 300. Maybe you can even find areas 150, 180,000 or whatever outside of big, large metropolitan areas. More blue collar, like small, medium metros, and lots of, I don't know, factory work, warehouse work, some kind of manufacturing or influence of railroad or something, agriculture or something. So there still are swaths of areas where you can find more affordable housing in the Midwest, but it's kind of less and less. And you can also take different strategies. You don't have to, just buy a quote-unquote turnkey house for like $420,000 or whatever. You can look at fixer-uppers. You can look at foreclosures and build your own house if you want to. Some kind of streamlined housing that you put a lot of labor into and purchase the materials, or kind of piecemeal the deal where you find different contractors to do different portions of the work, and you do some of the work yourself and hire an electrician or a plumber, or do some of the plumbing or whatever, some kind of trade-off. So those are all the options too, and that's kind of, to some degree, sort of the course I took. Is my initial house was really a foreclosure that happened through a divorce, I think, and it had some cosmetic work, and the air conditioning needed replacing. Central air needed replacing. Some work on the furnace, and the plumbing was absolutely atrocious, which I did as much work on that as I could and flipped that house. And you sort of use that kind of approach to, have a full-time W-2 job during the day, and then by night you renovate some kind of a foreclosure or distressed house and flip it and make a profit, and do that 2 or 3 times, and then get into a house you want somewhere and buy somewhere cheaper. So there are all those options, but you have to kind of temper your expectations to some degree, and find some kind of a fixer-upper or something outside of the metro area that you can invest some sort of time and labor into, and don't just expect everything to be nice and tidy and complete from the kind of jump. But that is sort of the trade-off in life is, do you want to pay more up front and have a big mortgage over the course of decades or whatever, or do you want to sacrifice some time and effort and fix something up and ultimately save some money and make some money through sweat equity or your own labor? So anyway, just sort of thinking about the economy and how one makes it in America today with the cost of living, the cost of housing, and everything. There's certainly ways to do it, but I think it's a lot harder today than it was even 5 years ago. 5 years ago was a completely different landscape and scenario. Sort of the cost of everything has exploded lately, and it's very expensive to live and get by today. So I guess back to maybe the point of this video being, am I satisfied with life? I guess to some degree, but over the course of especially the past 5 years, inflation and the cost of living has skyrocketed quite a bit in the United States of America. And whereas that might have been true at one point, that $60,000, perhaps there was not much change or difference or improvement in one's satisfaction levels in life past $60,000. I think that's probably not a good litmus test or level today in 2025, when the median home value is $420,000, and whereas in 1995 it was $115,000 versus a $25,000 income to be able to afford such a house, whereas today in 2025, singularly alone as a single person, you'd have to make 6 figures. So I think there has been a degradation in the quality of life and the affordability of life overall. And I don't see a whole lot of like uproar or dissatisfaction on like large scale by people. I'm not sure how most people, average people or whatever, get by and aren't extremely upset with the reality of the cost of living in the United States today. When you have to make 6 figures to afford the median house, I don't know, that seems like a very, very high bar to meet for most people. And then with divorce rates being 50% or more, how can you depend on having a partner to reach the median income level? But obviously you can live somewhere cheaper and do something different. So median is just 50% or more is under $420,000. But still, even like a $300,000 house, your income level would have to be relatively high to afford that. And then with just the whole instability of the job market and the economy now, to keep a high income level over a longer period of time and maintain stability seems like more and more of a difficult thing to maintain and accomplish over a large period of time, I guess. So, I don't know. To me, it seems like a lot of rot and decay in the United States, and I don't know how the fuck the vast majority of people are making ends meet. It seems like a lot of struggle and work just to be fucking average.